1967 Camaro, front suspension rebuild. You want to see how it's done? Grab a cup of coffee and stick around. Hey gang, Lou here. Well, we're going to go ahead and rebuild all the components for this Camaro. Now, I don't know how it happened. I'm just going to say it's because of the fact that I am not a rocket scientist. But I did a whole video on how to disassemble all this off the car. Upper and lower control arms, steering linkages, all that. And it seems to have all disappeared, both from my film editor and from my phone. So, we're just going to have to pick up from here, and then when I go to install it, reverse the installation for disassembly. It's just nuts and bolts. It ain't that hard. All right, so let's dive in. So on the upper control arms here, on each end, you're going to have a bolt and a washer. You're going to take those off. Throw that on the ground. Now, at some point in this, I'm supposed to say securely have this in your vise. You see how well that worked out, right? Now, some of you are probably saying, gee, Lou, those parts are awfully clean and shiny. And you're right, they are. So, I have somebody helping me in the shop, and one of their jobs has been to, well, clean parts and more or less do grunt work while they're learning how to work on their own car and do some basic mechanical stuff. But for those of us in the business, we all have to start somewhere. I know for me, I started off, well, cleaning parts for my dad, as he would fix his daily driver to get back and forth to work. All right, so we have rubber bushings, we have a shell, and then we have this cross shaft here. So what has to happen is that the bushings and the shell need to come out. And then after that, we can get the cross shaft out. A couple different ways to go about this. Some people just burn the bushings out. Some people drill out. I'm going to try to disassemble these because they're not in bad shape. So depending on your particular design, you're either going to burn these bushings out and then hit the shells from here, or you're going to hit the shell from up here. Either way, the idea is that this has to come out in order for the core shaft to come out. So I'm going to keep chipping away at that. And there you go. Only 3 more to do. Actually, this one wasn't bad. There are some that you're going to have a challenge, so be prepared to spend time doing this. Now, some kits you buy may come with a new cross shaft. If that's the case, feel free to go ahead and cut these right in half, and then you can just press them out with a ball joint tool or whatever. But you can see this is the whole shell and bushing here. Okay. So like I said, a lot of times what you do is you actually burn out the rubber if it's stuck onto the metal, and then just drive out the shells. This moves really pretty freely in here, so I'm not worried about doing that. These could have been replaced way back when. I know that they've been replaced at some point, but they're going, so I'm not gonna well, break out the fire starter if I don't have to. Oh, go ahead and knock the other one out. Now, I just wanted to point out, on this particular design, what I can do is I can simply take that right off the end there. So now, got the cross shaft in my hand, and well, get out that other shell. Didn't see that coming, huh? All right. Try it again. There, like that. Now for the lowers. All right, so what I'm doing from the back side, or the side that you guys can't see, of course, is in between the rubber bushing and the metal sleeve. Taking a drill bit. I'm drilling the rubber away. To free up the inner sleeve. Okay, I'm going to show you how to properly misuse your tools. Okay, so just to show you what that looks like. You want to drill out the rubber in between the outer shell and the inner sleeve. Okay. Now the other way you could do it, make sure I got you guys set up right. The other way you could do it is you could just burn out. You just burn out the rubber, push out the sleeve, and then you can knock out the shell. So there's nothing wrong with doing it this way. You just have to be a little careful because that rubber explodes. It's going to be very hot. It's going to hurt you. See the way it's coming out? That's what I mean as far as it can explode. So now, and that's out. And that's out. Okay, now, again, depending on how long stuff's been in the car and who taught you or what you know, you can take a drift like this and start collapsing in this inner, the outer shell that's here. If you get lucky, and I don't know that we will, but it may start going on its own. than this is. So, see if we get in here with a chisel. And of course that shell's still going to be hot. And that's that. One more to go. And it's going to be the same thing, so second verse, same as the first. Now, the lower ball joint. So, some cars may use a snap ring at the bottom of it. Some cars, if it's original, will actually have a tack weld. Now I happen to know for a fact that these ball joints have been done and that there's no snap ring. So, if you have access to a big vise like this, that's great. If not, just support it. Take your BFH. There we go. Sometimes you just got to keep at it. All right, I'll take out that last bushing, and then I'll finish cleaning up the control arms, and we'll get these ready for primer and paint. Okay, so with all the bushings out, what I'm doing at this time is I'm just running over with a wire wheel on a drill, and got a little grinding stone. I'm just using inside where the ball joint and bushings go. Alright, because these are getting painted, so it gets treated just like everything else on a car gets treated. No grease, no oil, no nothing. And as far as cleaning all this up, now is the time to do it, okay? Because after this is painted, I have to come back in here and get all that paint out. All I want to worry about is getting the paint out of here. I don't want to have to worry about taking any rust off and having to put this back in the vise and take a chance on damaging it. Now, the only other thing I will do is we're going to clean up the threads here. These are just for the shocks, but we want them cleaned anyway. So, go get my old friend a thread chaser. So, have our thread chaser. I can't quite turn it down by hand. Again, we want to do all this now rather than later. And yes, I'm going to be doing it later also, but again, I want to get the majority of the stuff out now. Other than a final cleaning, I think that's going to do it for this guy. Now, as far as the bolts, do the same thing. Just run a thread chaser down the stud here, down this bolt. And that's about that. Now I just got a bunch of other parts to do. All right, so now, before you think you're just going to start painting everything, it has to be cleaned. I'm going to treat this just like any other painting process. So, any wax and grease remover, whether you get it from the body shop, whether you get it from Eastwood, it doesn't matter. The idea is to get it clean. Then, we got some more things to go through. But we don't have that option, so about an hour or so I have into removing the bushings, stripping them down, cleaning out where the bushings go, and then this last part here. So it's a little bit of a time investment. So you take my shop hourly rate versus what it costs for all new control arms, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out how the math works out best. And honestly, I don't mind it. It's actually kind of therapeutic for me. All right, now we can start putting some products on. Okay, so you got your parts all cleaned. Think you're ready to go? No, you're not. So we still have some rust and we still have some bare metal. We want to etch that metal. We want to give it some tooth. All right, so what I'm using is a product here. It's called Eastwood Fast Etch. What does it do? Well, it etches the metal. It's also a little bit of a rust converter. All right. Now this can be applied with a rag, brush, whatever. You could actually put this in a bucket and put your parts right in there. What I prefer to use is one of these rechargeable aerosol spray cans, right? So this is really, really cool. Top screws off, you put your product in. Fill it up about halfway. Here you got a Schrader valve, tire chuck, right? So you put about 50 PSI in here, and now you've got a spray can. The cool thing about it is that because you're only putting the product in that you're going to be applying, when you get done, put it right back in here. No contamination. All right, so what will happen is that this will actually convert some of that rust to a phosphate. And it's okay if you drench it, that's the idea. You can smell it. It's almost smells like acid. So now we'll give that about 20 minutes, and then, well, we'll be ready for the next step. Okay, now, one of the first things you'll notice is that the metal, where it was bare, isn't nearly as shiny as it was before. That means that the fast etch has done its job. So now, we're ready to start applying some coatings. So the first thing that's going on is this here, Rust Encapsulator by Eastwood. I've been using this product for, I don't know, 15 years. Why? Because it works. Not sponsored, but it works. The rust encapsulator works pretty simple. It takes whatever existing rust you have on there and seals it. Not seals it like rubberized undercoating, but actually seals it. Airtight, nothing's getting in, nothing's getting out. So it's going to stop rust in its tracks. Now the other thing that it does is it coats everything else. And it gets us ready for our next coat after this, which is actually going to be a 2K chassis black. Now this stuff is not thick at all, okay? It can be sprayed. I think it says you can reduce by 20% to spray it. Reduce with lacquer thinner. Let me see. Yeah, 20% with lacquer thinner. We're not going to spray this because I really only want to clean my gun once. So, I'm going to grab a brush. Now you can use a sponge brush, regular bristle brush, whatever. Now before I go and paint this, I just want to let you know, I already went and wiped everything down again with wax and grease remover, just to get rid of any of the acid from the fast etch. Again, I'm wearing gloves, and this stuff is really, really thin. So, let that dry overnight. It says about 8 hours to top coat. It's not 8 o'clock in the morning right now. So, unless I want to paint these 10 o'clock tonight, I will be painting them in the morning. It's kind of neat because as I pull the brush over the metal, I can feel how much it's etched. The brush itself, even though it's wet with material, isn't just gliding over the surface. So I know that this stuff's going to stick on there, and that's the idea. Anytime you deal with a film adhesion product, and it could be paint, it could be concrete coatings for your garage, it could be any number of things. This prep, this initial coat that goes on, is the basis of which everything else gets put on. So if this fails, everything else on top of it is going to fail. Putting it on thicker doesn't make it better. So, now you can see just in that, 2-3 minutes, this first piece is done. I'm going to run around and do the other 3. All right, folks, well, there we go. So, 2 coats, rust encapsulator on everything. Now I let it sit for 8 hours, and then I can spray my 2K chassis paint on it. So you see the paint is thin, but it lays down really good. It gets into all the nooks and crannies and all that. No brush marks, nothing running off the ends, no big gobs hanging off or anything. That's it for this phase. So tomorrow morning I'll come out here, I'll shoot these, wait for that to dry, and then I can assemble them and put everything back on the car.